Cette jeune femme a tout juste 20 ans. C'est son premier essai caméra. Elle n'a jamais rêvé d'être actrice. Pourtant, elle va devenir une immense star. Son nom, Kim Novak. À la fin des années 50, ses films font plus d'entrées que ceux de Marilyn Monroe et John Wayne réunis. Mais Kim Novak restera surtout et à jamais l'inoubliable blonde hitchcockienne de Sueur froide. Ce chef-d'œuvre du maître du suspense est une mise en abîme du sort que réserve Hollywood à ses actrices. La transformation d'une femme en fantasme, en objet du désir masculin.
Oh, I remember once the head of publicity at the studio said to me, just remember, never forget that all you are is a piece of meat, you know? It's like in a butcher shop, you know? The worst part is that you're treated that way.
Insoumise dans l'âme, Kim Novak va résister. À l'écran comme dans la vie, elle va se battre pour rester elle-même, reprendre le contrôle de sa carrière et de son destin.
I guess I've always wanted the right to be me, to be in charge of my own body, my mind, and the way I look. I always need to voice my opinion. I feel I have the right to it.
C'est l'histoire d'une femme en avance sur son temps. L'histoire d'une rebelle au cœur du système.
A landslide in the exclusive Bel Air section of Los Angeles has reduced once proud, elegant homes to a jumbled mass of rubble. A crazy quilt of cracked plaster and twisted timbers is the incredible aftermath of what city officials have called a natural phenomenon.
Quand un glissement de terrain emporte sa maison en 1966, Kim Novak y voit un signe du destin. Tourner la page, la star y songeait depuis longtemps. Ce jour-là, elle laisse derrière elle ses bijoux, ses robes de soirée, sa vie de star hollywoodienne. Tel un film sans happy end, elle quitte définitivement la ville des rêves inassouvis. Cette ville qui, 13 ans plus tôt, l'a propulsée au rang de star. Tout commence en 1953. À tout juste 20 ans, Kim Novak sillonne les États-Unis pour promouvoir des réfrigérateurs. Un job d'été pour la jeune étudiante. De Chicago jusqu'à San Francisco, elle a juste à ouvrir la porte d'un frigo et sourire. La tournée s'achève en Californie. L'occasion rêvée de faire un saut à Hollywood. Pour payer ses vacances, Kim trouve des petits boulots de mannequin. Elle s'apprête à rentrer à Chicago quand elle est prise comme figurante dans une comédie musicale.
All we had to do was walk down a staircase and look good. And a dance director thought I had something different. So he called an agent from Columbia Pictures. He wanted me to do a screen test.
Au studio de la Columbia, l'usine à rêve tourne à plein régime. Kim arrive dans une industrie bien rodée, dont la matière première sont les actrices et les acteurs. Elle n'accorde aucune valeur à son précieux sésame, l'essai caméra.
I never intended to become an actress. I wanted to be an artist. I got a scholarship to become a painter, and that's what I always wanted to be.
Et pourtant, c'est ce jour de 1953 que son destin va basculer. Kim ne le sait pas encore, mais quand le studio lui demande d'enfiler cette robe faite sur mesure pour Rita Hayworth, le processus pour remplacer leur plus grande vedette vient de commencer.
They once had a shooting up in the Klondike when they got Dan McGrew.
Depuis les années 40, Rita Hayworth fait la fortune de la Columbia. Mais Rita a vieilli, un péché mortel dans la Mecque du cinéma. Pour Harry Cohn, le patron de la Columbia, il est temps de trouver une nouvelle star. Une blonde cette fois, pour rivaliser avec la grande star de la Fox, Marilyn Monroe. En voyant les bouts d'essai, Harry Cohn mise tout sur cette jeune femme blonde qui crève l'écran. Ironie du sort, elle aussi s'appelle Marilyn. Marilyn Novak. Marilyn Novak signe un contrat de 6 mois avec la Columbia, pour un salaire de $100 par semaine.
That's a whole different path than I ever thought I'd go down. I mean, I wanted to be a famous artist. Suddenly it was a change of direction. So it was a mixed bag of being excited and scared. It never occurred to me that I would ever be in movies or be a movie star. I mean, that just seemed crazy.
Mais la jeune femme ne compte pas devenir la remplaçante de Rita ou la copie conforme de Marilyn. Sa timidité apparente cache l'âme d'une rebelle. Comme toutes les jeunes recrues, Kim va passer à la moulinette de l'usine hollywoodienne. Ici, on façonne des créatures sur mesure, tout droit sorties d'un imaginaire masculin. Première étape, les cheveux. De Mae West à Jean Harlow, les blondes platines sont la marque de fabrique de la Columbia.
The blonde bombshell plays into male sexual fantasies around purity, being angelic. There's an infantilization that happens to the bombshell because she's not supposed to be aware of the way in which she is being seductive, which gives the male recipient of that behavior a way to play with sexuality without having to be overt.
Marilyn Novak n'est pas assez blonde. Elle va devenir platine à son tour. Mais elle insiste pour ajouter sa touche personnelle. Un léger reflet violet, sa couleur préférée. Prochaine étape, le maquillage. Kim n'est qu'un petit rouage d'une puissante machine, pourtant, elle va résister.
I felt when I got through, I was like some little girl that they painted images on, and that was scary. And so I would go to the ladies' room and wipe off as much as I could of those dark lips, you know, and these big eyebrows, and the makeup man was livid.
Et pour finir, un sourire hollywoodien et une silhouette de rêve.
He'd send you off to a place where they're supposed to starve you to death, you know. They'd tell you, don't eat. It made me want to eat. And I'd have to go sneaking food, and I guess there's a bit of a rebellion in me somehow.
Une fois la transformation achevée, le studio va la marketer comme la blonde lavande.
It's almost like someone's wanting to kill you in a way, kill your essence of who you are. I feel like all my life, really, in a funny way, that people wanted me to be something other, which made me very insecure. It's like, what's wrong with me?
Après cette métamorphose radicale, le studio va toucher au plus profond de son identité. Comme Norma Jean Baker est devenue Marilyn Monroe, Margarita Cancino s'est transformée en Rita Hayworth, on impose un nouveau nom à Marilyn Novak.
Certainly, many European artists came to the United States and had to change their names. If they had accents, they had to learn how to take the accents out of the way in which they spoke. They had to have anglicized names. You had to mute your ethnicity in order to allow the Americanness to rise to the surface, whatever that is.
Novak. Ce nom d'immigré n'est pas digne d'une star hollywoodienne. Et il ne peut y avoir deux Marilyn. Sans même la consulter, le studio lui annonce son nouveau nom, Kit Marlowe. La jeune femme, fière de ses origines tchèques, refuse catégoriquement. Telle une élève indisciplinée, elle est convoquée dans le bureau de Harry Cohn, qui dirige d'une main de fer la Columbia. Il est si tyrannique qu'on le surnomme King Cohn.
He said, I hear you don't want to be called the name that we gave you. You know, and I thought, oh my God, this man, my gosh, how am I going to stand up to him? But I said, I won't change my last name. It's my family name. I'm not going to give that up. That's part of your roots. Marlowe has no identity of a nationality or a sense of the past or history. No history, no base. And so suddenly he said, well, what would you call yourself? And I said, well, how about Kim? But I won't give him my last name.
Face à l'obstination de sa nouvelle créature, Cohn finit par céder. L'actrice Kim Novak est née. Elle vient de gagner sa première grande bataille. Pour rentabiliser son investissement au plus vite, la Columbia jette Kim Novak dans le grand bain, avec le premier rôle féminin dans un film noir. Elle n'a jamais joué de sa vie. Qu'importe, le studio mise sur sa jeunesse, son aura, sa beauté. Le reste est secondaire.
You let him set up house for you.
All right. He bought me my clothes and my car. And a lease on a decent place to live in. Things I've never had in my whole life.
Kim enchaîne avec une comédie au titre imprononçable.
See? And even if you can't say it, see it.
Face au génie comique de Jack Lemmon, elle doit changer totalement de registre.
Good evening. My name is Robert Tracy.
And Charlie Nelson.
Oh, come on in. I think the hardest part for me was the very fact that it was fast. I got into it, and there I was on the screen right away, and without having a chance to stumble and fall down without anyone seeing me. Any mistake I made, it was right on the film, and it's a little frightening.
Sentiment d'illégitimité, syndrome de l'imposteur. Pour résister, Kim travaille énormément. En à peine un an, elle enchaîne 3 films.
It's all I can do not to think about you, though I know you're not thinking of me.
La jeune femme est remarquée par la critique. Le New York Times écrit « Kim Novak est le plat le plus délicieux que le public a eu le plaisir de goûter cette saison ». Un compliment pour l'époque, un crève-cœur pour l'actrice, très déçue d'être réduite à son physique. Le Golden Globe du meilleur espoir féminin et les 3500 lettres de fans qu'elle reçoit chaque semaine lui donnent le courage de persévérer. Mais derrière l'étoile montante se cache toujours la petite Marilyn, qui n'oubliera jamais d'où elle vient. Elle grandit dans un quartier populaire de Chicago, habité par des immigrés d'Europe de l'Est. Ses parents, Joseph et Blanche Novak, d'origine tchèque, travaillent dur pour offrir une vie digne à leurs 2 filles, Arlene, l'aînée, et Marilyn, la cadette. Les Novak ne se gardent pas de faire des comparaisons entre les 2 sœurs. L'une est belle, l'autre intellectuelle.
In school, I was not a good student. I was always looking out the window. Why are you looking out, Marilyn? Marilyn Novak, go behind the blackboard. It was dark back there. I didn't like it.
Une blessure pour la jeune rêveuse qui se réfugie dans l'art et la poésie. Jusqu'à ce que le prestigieux Art Institute of Chicago découvre son talent.
I got a scholarship. Finally, I found something I could excel in, that I was better than all those smart people, you know? The main thing it did for me was made me feel like I had something to offer beside a pretty face.
Mais sa beauté l'éloignera de son rêve de devenir peintre et la conduira vers un tout autre destin. Et pas celui que ses parents avaient envisagé, ni souhaité.
I sort of thought she would marry and have a family just as Arlene did and live right in the neighborhood. I think it's going to be awfully hard for her to find the true from the pretend. I think that'll be a problem there.
Le regard critique de ses parents sur Hollywood permettra à Kim de toujours garder les pieds sur terre. Dans un premier temps, pour les rassurer, elle emménage au Hollywood Studio Club, un pensionnat pour jeunes femmes interdit aux hommes. Un refuge pour les comédiennes, monteuses et scénaristes fraîchement arrivées dans la capitale du cinéma.
The Studio Club was a place that built your character. It wasn't just a place to live. There you could show your strength. You didn't have to be always under the thumb of a man. It was a place to build a woman's morale. I'll never forget how we'd sit around the dinner table or even in the bathroom while we're brushing our teeth, and we'd talk about what happens when you go for an audition, what happens when you do a screen test. You got to find out who are the producers and directors to avoid, which ones you could trust.
It was not uncommon for so many young women, especially during the studio system era, to fall prey, if not victim, to studio heads, studio chiefs, directors, other actors who were insistent upon sexual favors as a way of getting into the industry.
Ooh, a Hollywood party?
Well, sort of a party. Just two people who are interested in each other's future. I'll have the contract there, waiting for your signature.
I mean, I'd like to do something for you if you'd do something for me.
What we understand as the casting couch has been around for a very, very long time and is indicative of gendered power imbalances in the industry that persist today.
The Me Too generation didn't just start recently, it was then. We as women stood together and supported each other.
Dès 1953, une certaine Marilyn Monroe, ancienne pensionnaire, dénonce ces pratiques dans la presse. Gare au loup à Hollywood. Si tu ne cèdes pas à leur demande, ils ne renouvellent pas ton contrat. L'un des pires prédateurs sexuels de l'époque est nul autre que Harry Cohn. Alors qu'elle jouait son premier grand rôle pour la Columbia, Marilyn avait refusé ses avances. Il avait alors mis un terme à son contrat. Depuis, Marilyn fait la fortune du studio concurrent. Avec Kim, Harry Cohn ne prendra pas le moindre risque. Le producteur a déjà beaucoup misé sur elle et il a de grands projets pour sa carrière. Le rôle principal dans la superproduction Technicolor Picnic.
I read the play Picnic, well, way back before Columbia even had it, and I wanted to do it so bad. But I'm never very ambitious, shall we say, about trying to get a role. I just sort of leave it to the studio. But this one, I had my eyes set on it. I got it.
Si Kim s'est battue pour ce rôle, c'est qu'elle se sent très proche de Madge, reine de beauté d'une petite ville de l'Amérique profonde.
I loved that role. I loved being Madge. I mean, I identified so much with her. And Josh Logan, the director, said for Kim, being pretty was like wearing a crown of thorns. It was a crown of thorns.
Madge, I want to find out if you look real in the moonlight.
Alan, don't say that.
Well, why not?
Because I'm real, all right.
It doesn't matter whether you are or not. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
La beauté de Madge doit servir d'ascenseur social, en lui assurant un beau mariage.
You're awfully nice to be married to Alan, Madge. Better get busy. Busy? Pretty girl doesn't have long, just a few years. Then she's the equal of kings. I'm only 19. And then 21, and then 40. You don't have to be morbid.
I never wanted to get married. Maybe because my mom and dad were so wrong for each other. Because they were married, they stayed together. I mean, I enjoyed my single life, and it allowed me the freedom. I didn't want suddenly to find somebody else telling me how to change. One more person that had more rights than anybody, a husband.
À l'image de Kim 3 ans plus tôt, la jeune Madge fuit les mœurs étouffantes de son milieu et échappe à un destin tout tracé. Picnic sera l'un des plus gros succès commerciaux de 1956, devant la fureur de vivre. Avec James Dean, Kim Novak incarne une nouvelle génération en rupture avec les conventions de l'époque. Pour son prochain rôle, elle s'attaque à un sujet des plus tabous.
The Man with the Golden Arm. Otto Preminger chose to make a movie exposing illegal drug use, and I felt proud to be a part of it. He was bold and courageous. I admired that.
All right, good, take it. Go on and take it all. Because all that you're gonna need after that one shot is another. And then another, and then another. Take it! Let them kill you. It'll be quicker and better than doing it your way.
I was no stranger to addictions. Addiction threatened to tear my whole family apart. Alcohol was the curse from my father, food addictions from my mom.
A guy can't do it by himself.
I'll help.
Avec L'Homme au bras d'or, Kim se confronte à un réalisateur réputé colérique.
You see, a director is like a teacher, you know. Sometimes many actors are best accessible if you're kind to them, which is difficult for me. And other actors need to be a little shaken up.
Kim fait partie des chanceuses. Avide d'apprendre, elle apprécie même son exigence.
He had people shaking in their boots. Actually, he was gentle with me, yet firm. Perhaps he was wanting to show kindness for my dedication. Then again, maybe he just sensed how fragile I was underneath it all.
Open the door, I'll kill you. I gotta get out. Get a fix.
If you really
I can't.
Well, then I do have something put away to make us stop.
Give me quick. Give me.
Otto Preminger, he helped me gain self-confidence. He believed in me.
Please make me warm, Molly. Oh, I'm so cold.
L'Homme au bras d'or, avec ses multiples nominations aux Oscars, marque un tournant dans la carrière de Kim. Portée par la reconnaissance, elle se sent désormais légitime pour jouer des rôles plus complexes. Son horizon s'élargit. Tournée en Europe, apparition très remarquée au Festival de Cannes, Kim déclenche un véritable ouragan médiatique.
Sur la Croisette, le 9e Festival de Cannes s'honore de compter la dernière coqueluche blonde d'Hollywood, Kim Novak. Sa bonne volonté ne sera pas mise en doute. Nous l'aurons eue sous tous les angles.
That was pure magic. Oh my gosh. I had a sense of being away from all that authority. Nobody, not my mother, my father, Harry Cohn, no director, anybody telling me what to do. It was the first time I felt like I was a movie star. Like they treated me like I was special. They liked me. And it felt so good.
Après cette parenthèse enchantée, Kim retrouve la prison dorée d'Hollywood. La Columbia l'enferme dans des rôles à succès qui n'exploitent que sa beauté plastique.
The studio spared nothing trying to make me into a sex symbol. But it just wasn't who I really was inside. What I wanted was to share my soul on screen, not my breasts.
Ses rôles superficiels la décrédibilisent auprès des critiques, qui la qualifient de figée, impénétrable, glaciale. Glaciale, une tare pour certains, un atout pour d'autres. Le maître du suspense, Alfred Hitchcock, a justement un certain penchant pour les blondes glaciales. Il veut absolument emprunter Kim à la Columbia pour son prochain film avec la Paramount. En 1957, Kim est en tête du box-office. Harry Cohn en profite pour négocier le prêt de sa star pour la somme inédite de $250 000.
Harry Cohn is loaning her out for an exorbitant amount of money, and he's pocketing the profits, but still paying Novak whatever she's earning, like $1,000 a week, which, not to say that's not a handsome sum in $1950, but she often was the main attraction in her films, but often compensated the least because of her contract.
Issue d'un milieu modeste, Kim est plutôt satisfaite de son salaire. Mais quand son ami Frank Sinatra apprend combien elle gagne, il tombe des nues.
Frank Sinatra said, "Don't tell me that's all you're making. Oh, you're worth more than that." When he put it that way, I understood. In other words, money does mean power. So if they don't give you any money, you're not in control of your life. So, yeah, I think I should get more money, I guess.
Déterminée à ne plus se laisser faire, elle révèle aux journalistes du magazine Time qu'elle est 10 fois moins payée que ses partenaires masculins. Une semaine avant le début du tournage de Hitchcock, sur les conseils de son agent, Kim se met en grève et exige de renégocier son contrat.
Oh, and Harry Cohn was just livid. But I felt strong enough at that point that I could do it. I felt empowered somehow. I am worth more.
Harry Cohn riposte. Kim est suspendue et ne touche plus son salaire. Mais la Paramount et Hitchcock s'impatientent. Sous la pression, Harry Cohn finit par céder. Le salaire de Kim est multiplié par 4. En remportant ce bras de fer, Kim Novak vient de porter un coup décisif au système des contrats abusifs des studios. Elle a pris un gros risque. Elle aurait pu passer à côté du rôle de sa vie. Ou plutôt, du double rôle de sa vie.
Do I really look like her?
Dans Sueur froide, elle incarne la brune Judy qui doit se transformer en la blonde et mystérieuse Madeleine pour assouvir le fantasme de l'homme qu'elle aime.
I read that script, I just loved it. I loved the idea of playing the two different characters. It gave it a wonderful complexity, and I could identify with both.
I just want an ordinary, simple gray suit.
But I like that one, Scotty.
No, that's not right.
The gentleman seems to know what he wants.
Le film est une mise en abîme vertigineuse de ce que Kim vit depuis son arrivée à Hollywood. Sa transformation en objet du désir masculin.
The role really appealed to me because of Judy's resistance, needing to be loved but not willing to be totally what someone else wanted her to be.
You're looking for the suit that she wore for me. You want me to be dressed like her.
Judy, I just want you to look nice. I know the kind of a suit that'll look well on you.
No, I won't do it.
Coiffure, costume, Hitchcock porte une attention maniaque aux moindres détails. Sur le tournage, la réalité rejoint la fiction pour Kim.
If the hair was off in any way, he was calling the hairdresser over constantly. Fix that. In the back, the bun isn't twisted right. He was constantly aware of the exterior, the facade. He was obsessed with it. Same way as Jimmy Stewart's character was obsessed with making sure that Judy was dressed exactly like Madeline. Alfred Hitchcock really was that character, wasn't he?
Si Hitchcock garde le contrôle de chaque aspect technique et visuel de ses films, il laisse à ses comédiens un espace de jeu formidable.
Well, I don't direct. I don't shout out on the set, do this and do that. I tell them quietly in the dressing room what the points are being made in this scene, the character points and the dramatic points, and that's it. Then it's up to them. I say, well, here is the scene, do it.
He allowed me to know the character and portray the character. That gave me so much freedom. I mean, it's the first time I felt that free. And I so appreciated the way he turned me loose in my interpretation.
To switch from Madeline to Judy is such a gigantic switch, and that she could do both so convincingly. If nothing else, that proves her to be the great actress that so many people said she wasn't.
The color of your hair.
Oh, no.
Judy, please, it can't matter to you.
If I become her, will you love me? When I played it, I felt absolutely stripped naked. I felt so vulnerable.
If I let you change me, will that do it? I do what you tell me. Will you love me?
Yes.
The transformation took me way back, way back into my mother and father when they wanted me to be a boy and I came out a girl. It was the whole experience that I had in Hollywood, wanting to make me over. It was so real. It was so painful. So very, very painful. Being willing to do almost anything just to be loved.
Well?
It should be back from your face and pinned at the neck. I told her that. I told you that.
We tried it. It just didn't seem to suit me.
Please, Judy.
Kim Novak often talked about feeling that this was a film about Hollywood changing her into some kind of screen goddess. It's probably the last thing Hitchcock thought it was about. That doesn't matter. A viewer can take that to the film, even if Hitchcock didn't intend for us to come away feeling that this was a story about what happens to women in Hollywood.
Si pour Kim et beaucoup de spectatrices, cette transformation symbolise une profonde perte d'identité, pour Hitchcock, c'est une métaphore sexuelle. En habillant Judy, il la déshabille.
When she came back from having her hair made blonde and it wasn't up, this means she has stripped but won't take her knickers off. He's waiting for the woman to undress. And while he was standing there, looking at that door, he was getting an erection.
She's given up. And now she's Madeline. She's no longer herself. He loves who she's made herself into. And they kiss. At the end of the scene, Hitchcock comes out from behind the camera. He had a smile on his face. He just glowed after that. And his face was red, which seemed odd to me. You wouldn't expect a face to be red with satisfaction.
There are so few films that I know today where women are as central as they are in Hitchcock, which I think explains the attraction of so many women to Hitchcock films. It was her story. I don't care how many people think it's Jimmy Stewart's story. It was Kim Novak's story of being made into something that she felt that she wasn't. And I think of her as partly creating that film.
À sa sortie, le film ne trouve pas son public. En pointant du doigt le contrôle que les hommes exercent sur les femmes, le film est trop en avance sur son temps. Sueur froide est sans doute le film le plus personnel d'Hitchcock. Mais il est aussi pour Kim Novak, ce qui rend cet échec d'autant plus douloureux. Mais ce n'est rien comparé au tumulte qui va bouleverser sa vie privée. En 1957, lors d'une soirée mondaine, Kim croise un ami de Frank Sinatra, le célèbre chanteur et acteur Sammy Davis Jr. Kim a quitté le plateau de Sueur froide sans avoir eu le temps de se changer. L'actrice porte encore la perruque brune de Judy.
Sammy comes over and he said, "That's not your hair, is it?" I said, "No, I've got this hairpiece on. I've been working in it all day. It just hurts." And he said, "Hey, I'll help you take it off." I do remember the feeling of that hairpiece coming off. It was the most sensuous feeling, having Sammy pulling out these pins out of my hair. It felt so good just to, be free of that. Actually, what I was free of is having to be Judy or Madeline or anybody but me. He had a special charm, this sort of boyish quality, and I think he had a crush on me. The next morning, he called me and said, "Hey, don't forget you're coming over for Thanksgiving dinner."
Partager un repas avec une famille noire pourrait en choquer plus d'un à l'époque. Mais pas pour Kim et Sammy, qui n'y voient rien de transgressif.
I met his mom and his dad and his sister. Oh my God. It was like being at home with my family. Sammy and I climbed the tree in his backyard. He had a spontaneity that was so appealing.
Hey there, you on that high-flying cloud.
Ce magnétisme et un talent hors pair ont porté Sammy au sommet, malgré le racisme auquel il est confronté.
Sammy Davis Jr. was perceived as being able to transcend race by many people in America at that time. Someone like Sammy Davis Jr. can be this amazing entertainer at the height of his career, making all kinds of money. And at the same time, Sammy Davis Jr. cannot walk through the front door of the very casinos that he's been hired to perform.
I just felt this need to get out there and be the best, because that was my only weapon, to fight ignorance, to fight intolerance. And that was my thinking.
Face aux interdits, Sammy a une devise. Yes, I can. Il va l'appliquer une fois de plus. Un mois après leur soirée de Thanksgiving, alors que Kim fête Noël à Chicago, une surprise attend l'actrice et sa famille.
I'm in Chicago and I'm ice skating on my sister's ice skating pond, and a big limo pulls up. And Sammy gets out, arms full of presents, and all the kids say, "Oh my God, that's Sammy Davis Jr." So anyway, we just laughed, and then we had Christmas dinner. It was so special. And then everything went to hell.
Le soir même, Sammy rentre à Las Vegas. Mais sa visite éclair n'est pas passée inaperçue. Dès le lendemain, le Chicago Sun-Times prétend que Sammy Davis Jr. aurait demandé aux Novak la main de leur fille. L'article déclenche une véritable tempête médiatique. Sammy doit absolument prévenir Kim, mais elle est déjà dans son train pour Los Angeles, qui arrive dans moins de 36 heures. Impossible de la joindre.
The train comes to a halt. We were right out in the middle of nowhere. And I heard a knock on the door, and it was Sammy. I had no idea that the story broke that day, but Sammy did. And he needed to reach me before I got off the train, because the press would be there. We had to figure out how we were going to handle it. What would I say when I got off the train? He brought a bottle of champagne. I think he was thinking, we got dark times ahead. Let's celebrate. We had a wonderful night. In the morning, the train came to a jarring halt again, and Sammy got off.
Une heure plus tard, lorsque le train arrive à Los Angeles, une nuée de journalistes attend les deux stars. Tuyautée, la presse cherche Sammy partout, à l'intérieur même des wagons.
I have never told anybody, that he was on that train that night.
Interracial coupling was still very much taboo. In easily half of the states, miscegenation was still illegal and did not get overturned completely until 1967. We cannot understate the kind of influence that figures like Kim Novak and Sammy Davis Jr. would have had on American popular culture. And to have them openly dating would have signaled that, oh, this is something that's okay to do. And 1950s America just was not ready for that.
Harry Cohn non plus n'était pas prêt. La nouvelle lui fait un tel choc qu'il fait un malaise cardiaque. De son lit d'hôpital, il appelle Kim, fou de rage.
He called me and he forbid me to see him. Don't you ever do that again. You can't be seen with a black man. You'll destroy yourself. I made you, and you belong to Columbia Pictures. And I thought, wait a minute, Buster. Wait a minute, you didn't make me. I made me. And as far as I'm concerned, no one's got the right to tell me who I see or don't see. And Sammy, too, he felt the same way. Both of us wanted to be rebellious. You tell me I can't do it, I can. And it was a defiance that we both had.
The backlash against Kim Novak might have been considered career suicide. The backlash against Sammy Davis Jr. could have ended in physical harm, if not death. We just had Emmett Till 2-3 years prior to this.
A story that shocked the entire United States. Emmett Till, 14, was kidnapped and killed allegedly for wolf whistling at the wife of accused Roy Bryant.
Just the idea of whistling at a white woman was justification for a white mob to mutilate and murder Emmett Till, right? So it's not paranoia, it's not speculation, it's very real.
Pour Sammy Davis Jr., le danger s'appelle Harry Cohn. Décidé à mettre un terme définitif à leur aventure, il demande à Mickey Cohen, le gangster le plus célèbre d'Hollywood, de menacer Sammy. Le message est clair. S'il n'épouse pas immédiatement une femme noire, ses 2 jambes seront brisées et son œil arraché.
They were serious. I mean, Harry Cohn, he was somebody who could make something happen. It was scary. So both Sammy and I realized we couldn't see each other anymore because his life became endangered.
Moins de 2 semaines plus tard, Sammy Davis Jr. épouse la chanteuse Lorray White, mettant un terme définitif aux rumeurs, mais aussi à sa relation avec Kim. Si les répercussions sont dévastatrices pour Sammy, Kim n'en sort pas indemne.
It wasn't just my friends that suddenly looked at me differently. I felt it with producers, directors. All of a sudden, I dropped a whole bunch of notches. I wasn't the #1 box office star anymore. But it was nothing compared to what Sammy had to go through.
Kim et Sammy ont perdu la bataille. Mais en se confrontant à une Amérique encore profondément raciste, ils ont fait évoluer les mentalités. Un mois plus tard, Harry Cohn succombe à une nouvelle crise cardiaque. Kim assiste aux obsèques. Elle ressent une certaine appréhension pour l'avenir. Car si Harry Cohn était un patron tyrannique, il était aussi le principal moteur de sa carrière.
When you're a dictator, all the people around you know how to take orders, but they don't know how to do something themselves. They were just all followers, not leaders. But I had no idea how much it was going to affect me and where my path was leading.
Ce chemin va la mener loin du soleil et des paillettes de la Cité des Anges. Dans la grisaille new-yorkaise, l'actrice tourne son nouveau film, Au milieu de la nuit. Pour ce drame au réalisme brut, Kim se débarrasse volontiers de tous les artifices hollywoodiens et découvre avec joie la collaboration artistique.
What I loved about it is you had rehearsals. I'd never had that before. You were able to rehearse and able to talk to the director and the producer and discuss about the character. They told you what they're looking for. You told them what you thought. I mean, I felt just a camaraderie with everybody, and it was harmony.
À première vue, le sujet du film, une histoire d'amour entre une très jeune femme et un homme proche de la soixantaine, n'a rien d'original. Mais là où la majorité des films éludent la question, Au milieu de la nuit fait de l'écart d'âge le thème central du film.
It's your family I'm worried about, Jerry. I mean, you got 2 kids older than me.
Oh, these things are always exaggerated. I mean, they won't call you mother. I mean, they'll call you Betty like everybody else.
I'm just afraid I'll make you unhappy.
Listen, I got plenty of worries of my own about getting married. Children, is it fair to have children at my age?
It's all right with me, Jerry. Let's consider ourselves engaged.
Une fois de plus, la fiction rejoint la réalité. Depuis ses débuts à Hollywood, Kim joue face à des partenaires plus âgés et plus expérimentés qu'elle. Après William Holden de 15 ans, son aîné, Frank Sinatra 18 ans et Jimmy Stewart 25 ans, son partenaire dans Au milieu de la nuit est Frederick March, 36 ans de plus qu'elle.
Here she's playing opposite the finest actor in the American theater, a man of 2 or 3 Academy Awards and 40 years of experience. It's enough to make her be frightened to death. But this girl is a very fine actress, and she's a complete revelation. It's a new Kim Novak.
Cette nouvelle Kim Novak ne peut plus revenir en arrière. À New York, elle s'est sentie libre. son désir de pouvoir s'exprimer artistiquement s'est encore renforcé. De retour à Hollywood, Kim prend une décision audacieuse. Au lieu de renouveler son contrat exclusif avec la Columbia, elle décide de monter sa propre société de production, Kimco Pictures.
In a man's world, which Hollywood was, totally man's world, I wanted to let women have a voice. I wanted to have more control of what I did. I wanted to make some decisions on my own because I believed in them. And I felt that's the only way you could do it, if you had your own company.
À cette époque, Kim fait partie des rares actrices, avec Marilyn Monroe et Ida Lupino, à fonder sa propre société de production. Garçonnière pour 4 est son premier film en tant que productrice.
Hello, boys. I'm Kathy.
Une comédie qu'elle conçoit comme une satire sociale mordante sur les mœurs sexuelles de l'époque.
When would you like me to begin?
When we think about all of the kinds of pressures that someone like Kim Novak had to withstand in order to stand up and be her own artist and pursue her own kinds of storytelling and to be her own boss.
A twist to the arm might help.
Here, twist.
Mais très vite, les ambitions de Kim se confrontent à une dure réalité. Chaque étape devient un véritable bras de fer artistique et financier avec ses coproducteurs.
Boys Night Out was a terrible movie, but it wasn't intended to be. It was a real fight for a woman to have a voice, you know, for them to listen to that voice. You know, you could scream and no one heard you.
Malgré l'échec de ce premier film, Kim n'entend pas renoncer. Elle développe 2 nouveaux projets quand elle est soudain confrontée au harcèlement sexuel d'un puissant coproducteur.
He was stalking me. He'd come around and be peeking in my bedroom. Man, I'd have had him arrested if I could, except that at that time, they didn't do that to men. You were always in the wrong.
Cette expérience traumatisante signe la fin de Kimco Pictures. Au même moment, une nouvelle ère s'amorce à Hollywood. Nous sommes en 1963 et le film le plus cher de tous les temps est un flop monumental au box-office. La télévision a envahi les foyers américains et le cinéma ne fait plus recette comme avant. Aux États-Unis, les mœurs connaissent un changement profond. Féminisme, mouvement hippie, Kim, la femme libre, se sent enfin en phase avec l'époque. Mais Hollywood a un temps de retard et la cantonne dans des rôles de sex-symbole. Elle a connu la grandeur de l'âge d'or, elle n'a pas l'intention d'assister à sa décadence.
I was at my wit's end about then with all of Hollywood. I knew I need to move on. I wanted to move on. I wasn't strong enough to say, I'm leaving. Exactly. Mother Nature had to step in and show me.
Ce jour de 1966, quand tout s'effondre autour d'elle, Kim décide de reprendre son destin en main. Devant ses yeux défile toute sa carrière à Hollywood, comme autant de souvenirs imprimés sur pellicule. Elle tourne le dos à la ville qui l'a portée au sommet, mais qui l'a éloignée de sa première passion, la peinture.
When I was driving there, suddenly I started getting excited. I'm moving to something that I've always wanted to do and always wanted to be. I felt I've got something to go to. Not just from, but to.
Kim n'a que 33 ans. Sa deuxième vie est devant elle. Sa destination? Big Sur, la côte sauvage de l'océan Pacifique.
I took off my clothes and got in the ocean. I just felt like I needed to cleanse and that I wanted to start out all brand new into my whole new life. And I knew that was where I was meant to be.
Après s'être tant battue pour s'exprimer à l'écran, elle va enfin pouvoir s'exprimer sur une toile.
On a canvas, you're the director, the producer, the actor, you're everything. So it's a wonderful feeling of being able to express everything you feel and everything you don't believe and everything you do believe it, but you put it all out there. I feel I'm able to communicate clearer or better in my art than I could on the screen.
À l'âge de 89 ans, Kim Novak est l'une des dernières légendes vivantes d'Hollywood. 60 ans plus tard, la rebelle de l'âge d'or est émue d'être encore là pour assister à ces mouvements historiques comme Time's Up et Me Too. Ces batailles, petites et grandes, ont ouvert la voie aux futures générations d'actrices et de femmes.
When all is said and done, I feel good about my choices. I'm doing exactly what I love to do, and I've led such a full, good life. I mean, it's been so rich with colors, some dark, some light, but they're bright and they're vivid and strong, and I think made me stronger. And to think that I'm still here and they're all gone, and it's like, I must have done something right.
Sa plus grande satisfaction sera de voir l'estime pour Sueur froide grandir au fil des ans. Aujourd'hui, le chef-d'œuvre d'Alfred Hitchcock et de Kim Novak est considéré comme l'un des meilleurs films de tous les temps.
Couldn't you like me just the way I am? If I let you change me, will you love me?
Watching the tides come in, watching the tides go out. As the tides roll on, we all go on. We all must live and then die. Yet that wave of sadness fills my heart, and still we wonder